This video, we're going to work out how to create and use your calendars. So you may already have calendars created. You may need to start from scratch. This is going to assume we're starting from scratch. So we're on the left-hand menu. We're in scheduling, and there are two options, calendar and appointment. These are the places where you view your appointments and you can actually set appointments. But the place to start is actually down here in settings, where we create a calendar. So I'm going to click on calendars in here, and I'm going to click on add calendar. So first of all, we're going to look at how to actually create a calendar from scratch or edit an existing calendar. So I'm going to call this one the tutorial calendar. And we're going to go through the options step by step to talk about what this means. So auto confirm appointment means that when something is booked on here, it's automatically confirmed. So if this is off, then you'll get an email alert, assuming you've set it down here, requesting you to confirm that appointment. So if there is a specific case that you do want to double check that you're available or something like that beforehand, you want to turn that off. But in most cases, you'll just want this to be on because you're in control of when you're available, so things should be fine. Now, allow cancellation and allow reschedule will basically determine whether or not someone gets the links in their calendar invite or their calendar booking to actually cancel or reschedule themselves. So if you don't want that, you can actually switch them one off or both off. Okay, so on this demo, I'm actually going to leave them both off. Slot duration means what is the default setting when someone books this. So if you are doing, like, say, 45-minute consultations, that would be a 45-minute slot. Now, the slot interval says when do they actually start. So if, for example, you're available between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m., and you set this to 30 minutes, it'll actually show availability at 9, 9:30, 10 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock, and 11:30. Right, assuming nothing's been booked. If you set it to 60 minutes, or 1 hour, it'll show 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and 11 o'clock, unless something's been booked there, right? Now, the other feature you have here is the buffer duration. So say I could set this to 1 hour intervals, but I could set a 30-minute buffer. So what that says is I don't want to have an appointment within 30 minutes. So if this is set to 1 hour intervals and someone's booked me at 9 o'clock, well, the 10 o'clock spot's going to be not available because it's within half an hour of when this previous one finishes. Okay, and buffers affect the beginning time as well. So if someone had booked at 11 a.m., then 30 minutes before that would be 10:30, so that would cut off the 10 a.m. slot as well. So it would just show an availability of 9 o'clock in the morning. Now, if my interval was 30 minutes, it would still show 9 and 9:30 because 9:30's appointment would finish at 10:15, and that's 45 minutes before that 11 o'clock. All right, which is more than half an hour. Confused? Basically, this just makes sure that you have at least 30 minutes between your appointments, but it will factor into your intervals as well. So I'm going to leave this as 60-minute intervals, 1 hour, and I'm not going to require any sort of buffer between the appointments, so I'm going to delete that. Now, the appointment title by default will be the contact name, or what you can change this to whatever you want. So what it means is that their name will be the name of the appointment, but you can change this to whatever you want. So you could say, tutorial with, and it will put their name in, okay? And the only other way to override that is when you set the calendar appointment. Sometimes you can, well, in certain settings, you can actually put in a custom appointment title. But by default, this will say tutorial with whoever books it. Meeting location, you can put in whatever you want here. It might be, you might put a Zoom link, you might put your address, you might say this is a phone call, okay, and that will come up on their calendar. Pixel ID you can put in here if you're using pixel tracking. Appointments per slot. So this means that, okay, this is not a phone call. Let's say we were running a fitness class and we were having up to 2 people we would accept together in any one class. So we would change that to 2. And it means that the slot will still be available until 2 people have booked in. I'm going to leave this to 1 at the moment. Appointments per day is exactly what it says. If you want to limit yourself to only 2 appointments per day, then even if there are other slots available, once 2 sessions have been booked, the day itself will be marked as unavailable. I'm going to leave this as blank. Okay, minimum scheduling notice means that how much time do you need to be notified of the appointment? So if you need a whole day, then that would be 1 day. If it's a phone appointment, you might say, look, I just need at least 3 hours notice of this. So what it means is if it's currently 1 o'clock in the afternoon, then the earliest available time slot will be 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So what it prevents is someone booking in an appointment like 10 minutes from now just because they're ready to go and you suddenly getting this appointment booking. Okay, so this is another reason why you probably don't need the auto confirmation off because you can give yourself the required notice. Now, date range is the other end of the field. Okay, so if you want to say, I want this person to book within the next 5 days, that's what we set here. And you can set that for days, weeks, and months. All right, so the principle here is that, for example, if you're booking something like a sales call or an introductory session to something, you don't want them to be able to book something so far in advance that, let alone how they're not as excited about what it is, they might have just forgotten about it. And despite our reminder sequences, they just don't show up. So the date range limits it. So in other words, on the calendar, if today was the 26th of October and I had like a 5 day date range, it'll show like 26, 27, 28, 29, and 30th of October, but it won't show 31st or even any dates in November. It will just mark them as unavailable. Okay, new appointment alert email. So you can put in an email address here of where you want to be alerted about appointments. This is optional because you can set appointment alerts via triggers. And when you set them via triggers, you can customize what that email says. So I'm going to choose to leave that blank because I would choose to use triggers to get the notifications about these emails. The thank you redirect means that after someone books the appointment, you can set where they get redirected to. If you leave that blank, they will get this thank you message just here, which you can customize as well. All right. Custom form. Okay, so by default, they will be asked for first name, last name, email, and phone number. If you would rather them be asked for something different, like full name, email, phone number, and maybe something else as well, you can create a form and then link it up here. So what do I mean? So I'm going to show you that. So I'm going to save where I'm up to, and we'll come back to this. I could go into my form builder, and I can create a new form, and I could say I want it to be full name, email, phone number, and I also want to know, are you a man or a woman? Probably not a good example. Let's stop using that like I did in the forms. What are you looking for? Let's use that one, okay? And so now I'm going to make full name required. I'm going to make this required. I don't even need to put a submit button on this form. What I can do, I'm just going to relabel it and I'm going to call it tutorial calendar form. And I'd recommend that naming convention so you know exactly what this thing is. I'm going to flick the sticky contact on. I don't need to put a submit URL because this will be designated by the calendar settings. So now I'll just hit integrate form, save and exit. I'll go back to my settings, go into calendars, and I'm going to edit my tutorial calendar. We'll pick up where we left off. And I can say custom form is going to be my tutorial calendar form. So hopefully that helps. All right, so the thank you redirect URL, this is where you set this, not on the form. Okay, so I'm not going to set one just now. We're going to just leave it as is to display this message. Additional notes is just here. So you can, if you're not having the schedule and the cancellation on there as well, you could delete this as well, but this is more to do with your notes in the system, but I'm going to get rid of them now anyway. Custom code, you can input this just here. Includes like custom HTML and JavaScript here, as you can see. All right, so that's the general settings of the calendar. Now, one of the most important parts is the availability. So this is how the availability works. There are toggle buttons to turn on and off days. So that's Sunday on and Sunday off. And then for every day, you can set the hours. Now, a couple of important things to note as to how these work. First of all, you choose them in a drop down. So if I said, okay, my calendar starts at 7 a.m. and ends at 3 p.m., I just do it like that, okay? Now, if I turn off the day and I turn it back on again, it will default back to 8 till 5. So just make a note of that, because if you turn off a day, you will lose the customization you put in. So that's 7 a.m. till 12 p.m. say that I'm available. What we can also do is add in multiple slots, because we could say, well, I'm not available from 12 till 4, but I'm available again from 4 p.m. I'll find it here, through till 6:30. Okay, so now it's got 7 a.m. till 12 p.m. and 4 p.m. till 6:30 p.m. So we could do another one here and say, look, I'm available 8 a.m. till 9 a.m. and I'm going to be available from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. I'm actually going to put in, whoops, a mistake here in a second. Sorry, we're going to go 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., right? Now, it's really important because sometimes you can make an innocent mistake as you go through and say, okay, I've got all this set, 7 a.m. to 12 p.m., if that's noon, 4 p.m. until 6:30 p.m., that's good, 8 till 9, 10 to 11, I'm good, right? But if we look closely here, we've actually set this 8 a.m. till 9 a.m. and then 10 a.m. till 11 p.m. Okay, and this is going to cause some crazy availability. So one of the good ways to test this is like this. So let's say everything else was like as it was there. And I'll show you, we're going to change the date range. Actually, this will be fine because Tuesday's within 5 days. And we're going to save it because I'm going to show you a good way to double check on your calendar that you've got things correct. Okay, so I'm going to open the calendar by hitting the link button here. And you can see here's my Monday slots, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's and 4 and 5. That makes sense. I have a look at Tuesday, 8, 9, 10, 11. And it's 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 p.m. at night, right? So something is not right because I can see this by previewing the days. Okay, so when I go back to my system here, I would go back into it and I would go, oh, made a mistake. I set that to 11 p.m. instead of 11 a.m. So I go back and change that. Okay, so that's another way you can sort of keep an eye on that. All right, so you can toggle your days on and off, add your time slots as required there. Do make sure that they are set up sequentially. If, for example, I wanted to add in a 6 a.m. slot in here, I need to delete these and start it again, because if I add it in below this, it will actually show up below the 4 p.m. slot. So that's just a bit of a glitch at the moment. Or by the time you're watching this video, that may already be corrected. Okay, let's keep having a look. Link to calendar. You can integrate this with your Google Calendar or additional calendars if that is already set up by the time you're watching this video. So let's have a look at how that works because that's a really important step. So I'm going to save this and I'll actually show you I'll show you what to do. I'm not going to do it here, but it's very easy to do. You simply go into your settings and go to your integrations. Hit connect on your Google account. It will just ask you to log in to your Google account. Log in, accept the permission. It will say connected here. And then you can go back into your calendar. Correction, you can go back into your calendars, edit your calendar, and then down here now you'll be able to select the Google account. And if you have multiple calendars on it, you can select the appropriate calendar. And the last two options are the sync option here. You just want to leave that on one way. Basically, there are specific cases where you might want to disable triggers or set it to two-way, but those are case-by-case exceptions. 99% of the time, just leave it on one way. And then use sticky contact. You want to flick that on, as always, because sticky contact, what it means is that the data from like previous forms and this form onto next form, as long as your calendar, your forms, your surveys are on the same URL, the information will carry across and it will save your clients having to type in their name and their email in again and things like that. So always have that switched on unless you've got a very specific case as to why you don't, so that it automatically fills in. And that is how you create the calendar. So let's save that. And now have a look at how we actually use the calendar. So you saw before that I hit this link button to just open the calendar in a link, and you can always just use that to activate the calendar. So a couple of other things about what you may choose to do is you may want to embed the calendar on a web page. So you can do that in the appointment widget. You just select your, in your settings area still, choose appointment widget, select the calendar that you want to embed, you can either put in a button that brings up a pop-up of the calendar, or you can put this embed code in here in a custom HTML area or script area, and it will embed the calendar in that page. Or if you're using the funnel builder, you can just select the calendar by choosing the calendar element when adding it to your page. So that's one way to put the calendar into play. But the other way to actually use the calendar is within your just direct scheduling. So on this option, there's also two ways to go about it. So one of them is within your conversations. I'm not sure if we have any of this account yet. Do we have anything? Nope. So let's have a look at another demo account. So you can, for example, when you're looking at a conversation with someone, they might have asked you for a particular booking time. You can just hit the schedule button, choose your relevant calendar. You can change the appointment title, otherwise it'll use what you just set in the calendar options. It'll automatically fill their information in. You can choose their time slot, and status, appointment status, probably just leave as default as busy or confirmed. Any notes that you want to put into the appointment. And of course, what I skipped over, choosing the time slot. Now, one thing to understand though here is that you'll only see the time slots that you have as available in the calendar. Like in other words, this is basically another version of what the client sees. So if you want more flexibility in how to book it, the other way to do it is to go into your scheduling on the left and click on calendar. Now this will show you like a Google type Google Calendar type display of your week. If you've integrated it with Google, it will also show you other appointments that you've got. If you've got different calendars in, they'll show as well. It's just the ones that the calendar that you've selected up here will be shown in color. So the important thing is that you need to select the relevant calendar to book that calendar. So say if I went back to our tutorial business here, if I had multiple calendars, I want to make sure I pick the right one. And once I've selected the right calendar, I just pick on a space where I want to book it in. So the only thing you can't pick on is a date in the past. So if I wanted to go into next week here and say I want to book an appointment, and let's say I want to put it at 6 a.m., which, as if you remember, is outside my normal availability, I can still do it. I just click here. I choose the start time. I may need to adjust the finish time because on the calendar view, it will default to 30 minutes. So I'm going to change that to 6:45. I'm happy with the default title, so I'm going to leave that blank. Here, though, it's important that we use an existing contact. So if you don't have the contact already, the best practice is to go and add them as a contact by going to contacts and just adding a contact, and then type in their name. Wait for it to autofill with whatever's there. Now in this case, it's not there. So did we have anyone? I think we had, who did we add here? Was it Jane, someone? Jane Bridge, so there we go. So now I can select her, and this will now trigger any automations. Because if we just create a new contact, sometimes that can make things go a bit funny, in other words. Select their time zone unless it's the same as yours. If it's the same as yours, leave it blank. Location, you can change here, or you can leave it to what will default on that normal calendar setting. And status and appointment status is likely you just leave as busy and confirmed. Put in any notes. These will just be in your calendar, in your automation platform here. And then you can save the appointment. And once you do that, it'll fire off any related triggers, and it will put the appointment in to this calendar view here. There you go, and there it is. Tutorial with Jane Bridge, exactly what we named it in our settings. The other thing to note when you're creating appointments like this is if you click on a space and then you decide, no, that wasn't the right time, you can change it up here to the correct time, like way off what you clicked. Or if you don't even want to make the appointment anymore, you can just close it. But you will have marked this as unavailable. This is a deliberate feature because what you can do now is you can click and drag this and mark extra periods as unavailable. And even if you're normally available at that time, it won't show availability on the calendar. But what it also means is that if I do just click somewhere and then close it, I end up with this half-hour spot. So if you don't want that, click on it again and then go down the bottom and hit delete, and it will free up that time slot. So that's something to be aware of when you're using the calendar view. And then finally, with your appointment list, you will see them in a list here under appointments, and you can see it under all calendars, specific calendars, all the different statuses, or you can see them in like ascending from today, so you don't see prior appointments, or you can put it in reverse order. Sorry, you can put it in start date as to when the appointment is, or you can put it listed as when they were actually added. So, one of the most useful views really is the date ascending from today, because it will basically show you appointments coming up in future and not show you the previous appointments. And from here, you can actually reschedule, cancel, mark them as no-shows, or even delete them. So that's how to create and use the calendar. However, what we haven't covered here is the triggers that actually really make the appointments work in terms of synchronizing with the campaign automations, the reminders, and things like that. That we're going to cover in a separate video, which is going to be on triggers. And so look for the calendar trigger video to understand what to do with your calendar and how it works in with triggers.